So there was this article and poll in the Wall Street Journal today, which really startled me, and I want to go over it with you. It says Americans lose faith that hard work leads to economic gains. And I think this is actually a real cultural problem we need to address. That's why I want to go over with you and see what it says. But just, first reactions, Americans lose faith that hard work leads to economic gains. So kind of means that people maybe don't feel like they want to work anymore because it's like, why bother if I can't get anywhere? And that's sort of my reaction. And I understand like how it is in the USA completely. If you look at even what's going on today, as we'll get to the article in a minute here, but people are out protesting. It says nationwide Labor Day protest denounce billionaires in Trump's orbit. I think the theme of the protest today was workers over billionaires. And this thing has always been strange for me. It's been like this for years to where people who vote for, effectively Republicans and the right-leaning candidates, uh, people are voting against their interests, right? Because the Republicans are always favoring business or billionaires, and it's gotten worse. And now, you put a business person in the White House, and his main interest is to put money in his pocket. I think you guys know all this stuff already, but I just want to show you because it demonstrates, right? These protests demonstrates that you are not alone. There are people out in the streets right now, right? Trump must go now. Which side are you on? And there were in multiple cities today. So today is Labor Day. We also have this as Trump's VA union busting is another step toward privatizing veteran care. And we actually have members in our community that are in the VA, so you'll probably know about this kind of stuff. And we're just kind of seeing an erosion of workers. It is workers' rights and laws and things that are designed for workers. So I think all of this stuff is related, and that's why I want to go over this. I think it's an important one. So let's see what this says. It says America is becoming a nation of economic pessimists, right? So I guess people just don't have a good feeling about the future. A new Wall Street Journal NORC poll finds that the share of people who say they have a good chance of improving their standard of living fell to 25%, a record low in surveys dating back to 1987. More than 3/4 said they lack confidence that life for the next generation will be better than their own, right? So basically people feeling down about the future, and I remember this stuff when I was a kid, and you guys can let me know if you did the same, but they would always like survey us all the time. And that's not this particular story, but I just remember as a kid, they'd always say like, do you think you're going to make more in the future? Do you think you're going to make more again, your grandparents, parents, et cetera? Like you would see these kind of polls. Do you think, the people around you are going to make, money, et cetera? They'd always talk about that. And I also want to make it clear too, that this isn't just about your salary, because I think how they asked it here is standard of living. That is actually key, right? Because it's not just about salary. Standard of living can be your housing situation, your medical situation, food situation, mental health, any number of things, however you want to define that. But I think it's important to just talk about this standard of living, not just income. What else does it say here? Nearly 70% of people said they believe the American dream, that if you work hard, you will get ahead, no longer holds true or never did. This is the highest level in nearly 15 years of surveys. So this is actually pretty startling. I mean, all of this stuff is startling. I like I said, I think people kind of know this already, but when you see these kind of numbers, and that's why I'm presenting it to you, I just want to hear your all thoughts on this. I wrote a book called Positive Angles, so I have different views on this stuff than that. I'll just say this: it is definitely hard, and it's getting harder. I don't think it's impossible. Then I would never tell anyone to not work. Like I wouldn't tell people that. I think the way to be successful is creativity. And I know it's easier said than done, but and guys, I talk about stuff in my book. It's basically sometimes you have to think, okay, maybe a certain profession, it's just the opportunities aren't there anymore. Even though that's what you want to do in the beginning, you might have to change. Or if there's a certain city that you really wanted to live in, but there's just no jobs there. And sometimes you have to change. In my situation, I changed quite a bit, talking about cities, because I had always had to go look for the best opportunity. And I know it's not easy for people to move. I completely understand that. And I know it's not easy. I mean, I did it myself, and I had several roommates and worked several jobs, all sorts of stuff. But you know, it's frustrating for me when I do this stuff all the time with you guys, and you know, talk about the situation in the USA and around the world, is because again, the people who say vote Republican are always voting against their interests. Like you're voting for Elon and Trump, who have no concept of regular people's lives, and so that's always something that for me, regardless of party, or because I just look at the candidates, I always do the same. But vote for people who actually understand the regular people's lives. So this number here, I think, you want to make sure that we're going for people who get this, and figure out a way to help people believe again. I mean, this is pretty bad. 70% of people believe the American dream, that if you work hard, you will get ahead, no longer holds true or never did. So this is quite interesting, though. There is a split depending on which party you affiliate with. So this one says, Republicans in the survey were less pessimistic than Democrats, okay? Reflecting the long-standing trend that the party holding the White House has a rosier view of the economy. So that's kind of interesting, right? So if you're Democrat and there's a Democrat president, and you say, oh, okay, things are getting better, right? Or if you're Republican and you're in the Republican president, you say, oh, okay, things are getting better. But I'd be curious how independents feel about this kind of stuff. Like if you feel either way. An index that combines 6 poll questions found that 55% of Republicans, as well as 90% of Democrats, held a negative view of prospects for themselves and their children. Okay, so Democrats are more negative about the future, right, for themselves and their children than Republicans, but still the majority, 55% of Republicans are feeling negative about the future. The discontent reaches across demographic lines. By large majorities, both women and men held a pessimistic view in combined questions. So, right, when you figure out, is there, only certain people feel bad about the future, et cetera, but they're saying both men and women feel the same. So did both younger and older, right? So it's not just a generational. Well, this is almost everyone then, that we're saying. Those with and without a college degree, and respondents with more than 100,000 household income, as well as with those less. So we're saying, wow, this is actually, they're basically just saying that when you look at the data, it's everyone kind of feels pessimistic about. Now, there are variations, right? So they're, saying Republicans are a little bit more optimistic than Democrats, but men, women, depending, income, education. It also says, it sort of saddens me, said Neil McConey, a Stanford University economics professor who has studied economic sentiment. Neil says, I think one of our superpowers as a country is our relentless optimism, right? Relentless optimism. It is the fuel for entrepreneurship and other exceptional achievements. And I would agree with that, actually. The idea is, I'm going to open up a business. I'm going to, keep trying hard because I believe that there's better opportunity for me. And the belief thing, right? Obviously, if you take that away, if people lose faith, there's less, opportunity, or how can I say, less pursuit of opportunity. That's the way to put it. If you believe there's less opportunity, there's less pursuit of opportunity. And if you also sort of put out there, or the word gets out that maybe, for example, let's say the American dream, is no one believes it anymore, then less people would come to the USA also, right? That's been a big strength of the USA, as I've always said, is encouraging immigration, people that come, that want to work hard, contribute to the country, right? And this is something that, is obviously a contentious issue these days with the Trumpies. What else we have here? The poll found a somewhat brightening view of the current economy. Okay, what do we got? Some 44% rated the economy as excellent or good. Okay, so that's less than the majority, but there's some people saying that. Up from 38% a year ago. Okay, though still a smaller share than 56% who now view the economy as not good or poor. And this always depends on your particular situation. I look at the numbers every day, and I can see where the trend is going, right? But I don't know, everyone's individual situation. But I do know for the job situation, at least, I think there's going to be, I know companies aren't hiring, but I think there's a possibility if things really go south, companies may start laying off en masse. And I know already some companies have in the tech sector and the financial sector. We've talked about this stuff. But that's why we go through this stuff every day, because my experience may be different than yours, or different than someone else. But and I ask you guys, what do you think? People like me having a good chance of improving our standard of living. So agree and then disagree. Okay. So the agree part, again, there's a question. People like me have a good chance of improving our standard of living. So that's really gotten down to people who agree with that. And they asked 1,500 people, margin error about 3%. And yet many people in the survey, as well in interviews, looks like they talked to people also, said they felt a sense of economic fragility, right? Even if their finances were adequate or secure today, in a generational cascade, majority said the prior generation had an easier time buying a home, starting a business, or being a full-time parent rather than in the workforce. While majorities also said they lacked confidence that the next generation could buy a home or save adequately for retirement. Actually, I completely agree with all that stuff. And I don't know how the kids say they're teenagers or college students now today feel. I'm sure they probably feel similar, but I don't know. I'm not that age, but definitely like when if you guys don't know, I was a professor for many years, but the people above me, or the generation above me, would always say the same thing, that it was way easier for them to get a job and everything was much more opportunity. And they, I've mentioned this before on the channel, they stayed in their positions for years, until like in their 80s and that kind of thing. So I don't think I have any professors, or my professors, I don't think I have any that are still working. I think they all retired. Like the last one just retired last year. So if I wanted her job, essentially, which there was always a talk that I would, go back someday and teach. I'm 50, so I'd have to wait for an opening for like till I'm 50. So just the opportunity was very, very small. I'm just giving my example, and there's other examples out there, be it with automation replacing a lot of factory jobs. It's just the reality of it, and we're seeing more threat on that with the AI stuff. So I think this one is a big one, though, is how do you see your kids' future? The other thing I was thinking about was the home ownership thing. Now that's always a tricky thing, because again, it's going to depend on your individual situation. This day and age, you may have to change jobs every couple of years. It's just the economic reality of it. So buying a home may not necessarily be a great choice for many people. Also, the prices are just out of this world. I think anyone who looks at the housing market knows this already. And guys, I see prices all the time. I'm always looking around like, who the heck can afford this stuff, right? You see it. It's like, it's just through the roof. And then, the crazy thing, talking about the Trump policy and stuff like that, he wants to get interest rates down, but that would, increase borrowing for more people. And then it's definitely not going to help housing prices. So there's that. Theoretically, you could build more, I guess. I mean, that's the other problem, is I was just, want to talk a little bit more about that. But theoretically, you could build more. But if you build stuff, you got to build affordable housing. But you need to incentivize companies and such to do that, home builders, because they're not incentivized to do it now. So let's read a little bit more. It says, while Jeff Lindy, 61, said he believes the economy is improving slowly, his adult children's experience in housing market draws a contrast with his own. Lindley was able to earn enough to support his wife and family when his children were young. They bought a house and later built two more. So they bought a house and later built. Okay, so I don't know if they have three houses now or just, moved. Now, two of his three adult children live with him, okay, in Godley, Texas. One in a trailer on the property, and one with her husband and a child in a home. And actually, that's a trend that I've been seeing a lot, to where many adult children are moving back, be it a job loss or couldn't find a job in the first place. And it's just like really, really hard these days for a lot of people. It says here, and I've had friends who are in this situation also, they can't afford a house yet, even though they're trying to save by living with us, said Lindy, a real estate appraiser. So, and this person would really know the value of homes, who said that he expects a housing affordability to improve with time, and he supports President Trump. So this person likes Trump. His income recently has been about 40% of what is typical in a slow housing market, which is kind of ironic when he's like, I support Trump, my income's down 40%. Actual versus predicted consumer sentiment. I see. Yeah, and we've been talking about this where, I guess the prediction was that consumer sentiment would be up here, but it's like way down there. we've been talking about this for a while, and I showed you guys in the last video, there was a really key chart, and this one's a big one also, but there was a really key chart to where sentiment is really diverging now, where if you're over 100,000, your sentiment is going up, slowly. But if you're under that, through my income here, it's really plummeting. And then put it together with this survey, kind of makes sense. So, this particular person, I think financially he's probably okay. I mean, it sounds like he's, a couple houses or whatever, and then he's in real estate appraising. But it's funny how he's still supporting Trump even though his income's down 40%. Here's another point of view. It's fun to read these. Bill Sanchez, 30, a criminal defense attorney who makes about $72,000 a year and is an Army veteran living in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, said the American dream isn't as achievable now. Quote, there's a limit to what hard work can actually bring people these days. Economists have puzzled for several years over disconnect between the nation's widespread sour economic outlook and traditional measures that show the economy to be robust. That problem bedeviled former President Joe Biden and contributed to his party's loss in 2024. Yeah, the basic gist of it would be, Trump may tell you, or Biden, doesn't matter, to say, hey, unemployment's fantastic, you're doing awesome, or look at the GDP growth is amazing, and the problem is not everyone is benefiting from whatever policies, right? It doesn't tell the full story. And that's why I showed you guys the protest thing, the workers over billionaires, is because yes, there is wealth in the USA, but the gap between rich and poor keeps getting larger. And if you, whatever channels you watch, and I don't know what you guys all watch, but whatever you watch, if they have never mentioned the wealth gap thing, that's a problem. I'm just telling you, like that's probably the problem that they're not mentioning, because that's probably the biggest issue that is going to be facing the USA. And it's going to continue in that trend where the divide between rich and poor will continue. And just being, honest with you guys, in this day and age, you really need to make sure that you're always reaching out to various people in your networks, build new networks, because being connected is going to be the most important thing going forward, especially if jobs get very, very tight. And then obviously you're going to always be continually upgrading your skills and learning about the world, where the opportunities are, et cetera. And so, I try my best every day to keep you informed and have an honest conversation with you about this stuff. I know it's tough out there. And then when I see this, it seems like other people also know. And it's very concerning, of course, that people have lost faith in this, and it's like the majority. So, when the workers go out and protest today and hope that we can, build a society that is beneficial to everyone, not just a few. I say the same things all the time on the channel, like make healthcare affordable, figure out ways to make housing affordable, public transportation, education, all these kind of things. Like, you want it to be beneficial for everyone, not just a few. And like I said, it's been a strange thing for years where people vote against their interests when they go Republican. But for them, maybe for some people, they're like, well, Trump's going to put more Bibles in school, and that's all I care about. I don't care about education, healthcare, and jobs or whatever. I just want more Bibles in school. Or these days, the Trumpers are like, hey, let's make it that trans can't play in sports. It's like, you can't even have a conversation with this kind of person. It's strange, and I get that they live in Delulu land, but I think at the end of the day, people do want to put food on their table, and so yes, there'll be Trumpers that are hardcore like that. But this is sort of why I just focus mostly on the financial stuff and the markets and the job market with you guys, because I think that's what affects really real people's lives, the same as we're talking about here. So I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts on this. I do appreciate your time, and I'll catch you all in the next video.